The LinkedIn Podcast Network is sponsored by TIAA. TIAA makes you a retirement promise, a promise of a guaranteed retirement paycheck for life. Learn more at TIAA.org/promises pay off.
LinkedIn presents.
I'm Morra Aaons-Mele, host of The Anxious Achiever, and welcome to my bi-weekly LinkedIn Live. Today I talk to Meredith Arthur, tech executive, author, and a kindred spirit who, like me, tends to process things in public, the things we don't usually talk about in public. Meredith has recently written about her journey on the weight loss drug Wegovy. Now, Wegovy is a semaglutide that is, along with Ozempic and Mounjaro, a much discussed new pharmaceutical that was originally created to help people manage diabetes, but that has other pretty amazing effects instead, because Meredith shares that one of the most profound changes that she's experienced since being on Wegovy is that the, quote, food noise in her head is quieted. I know that food noise all too well, the thinking about what you want to eat, what you feel you can't eat, what you feel you shouldn't have eaten. Did I go to the gym? Is this going to be bad for me? All that noise, she said, has dissipated, even though the drug itself has had some really serious side effects that she's managed. Meredith wrote that being on Wegovy has been like being on an SSRI of the body, a drug that has tremendous, tremendous value to her, but that is really a journey. So we talk about that. We talk about managing pain and mental health and showing up at work. And we talk about food noise. Enjoy and let me know what you think. I'm so happy to be here with you. Audience, hello. A reminder, I can't see you on LinkedIn. If you have questions, comments, pop them in. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear where you're from. We'd love to hear if you have your own questions or your own story, your own journey with Ozempic or Wegovy or anything fun like that. This is your time. I'm going to talk to Meredith, and, if we see questions, we'll take them. But Meredith, can you just tell the audience who you are?
Sure. It's so nice to not see you all. I have to believe you're there.
I know. It's weird.
But it's great. You know what? I believe you're there. I have faith. My name is Meredith Arthur. I live in the Bay Area. It's a bit overcast here today. I work in technology. I work at Pinterest. I am the chief of staff of Pinterest Innovation Lab, which is named 220. And I also am the founder of Beautiful Voyager, which is a podcast and site. And there's a book all about the same topics that Moira covers. She and I really get each other in this world.
We do. We vibe off each other. And one of the things that I want to talk about today is that you and I are both sort of public processors of our own journey.
Great point.
And a lot of listeners increasingly send me questions and stories about their own journeys. And should I go public with this? What should I do with this? And so I'd love to talk about that a little bit. But I called you up and asked you to do this LinkedIn Live with me, which will also be on the podcast feed for The Anxious Achiever, because you wrote a beautiful newsletter. All your newsletters are beautiful, and I really recommend everyone go and sign up for Meredith's Substack, Beautiful Voyager. But you wrote an email titled, Wegovy is like the SSRI of the body. I think that was roughly the title. And I'm just going to read what you wrote. One of the sentences. In addition to going up on Wegovy, which we'll talk about, I'm going down on Lexapro. Go you. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm halfway to my weight goal and I'm feeling much less pain than I was in 6 months ago, but it hasn't been easy. I said to a friend, Wegovy is to the body as an SSRI is to the brain. It's a miraculous medical tool, but it needs to be treated with respect. That sentence stuck out to me and I really wanted to explore it with you. So this was a couple months ago, maybe. How are you doing now?
Well, can I just say,
Yeah.
first of all, thank you so much for reading my newsletter, because to your point about being a public processor, when you go through things and you write them about yourself, you're always concerned that you're overly self-centered
Uh-huh.
or self-obsessed. And the reason that I am a public processor is it's the only way I know to build bridges around topics that I'm really interested in, and I have no idea what other people are thinking. And a lot of my confusion, even as a child, was like, this is what's in my head. What's in the people around me? What are they experiencing? What are they thinking? Really having no idea. And so the reason I decided to write the piece was because my husband one morning said to me, you know what? There seems to be a lot of hypocrisy around Wegovy in
You
particular.
should say what Wegovy is.
Yeah, let me say what Wegovy is first of all. Wegovy is is made of the same medication that Ozempic is. Ozempic has had more media coverage. Wegovy is a semi-glutenade. I think that's how it's pronounced. It is a shot that you take weekly, and it my daughter calls it an appetite suppressant. There's more going on to it chemically than that, but it makes your stomach digest its food more slowly, and ultimately it's a weight loss drug. So it is, gaining a lot of attention. Lots of people have been talking about being on it. TikTok, I'm sure, is covered in it. I know I've seen some TikToks about it. And it is something that I sort of surprised myself and went on back in February after having a hysterectomy. So I had been in a state of denial, maybe is the right way to put it, or I knew I was gaining a lot of weight through my endometriosis and pelvic floor congestion, through all of these issues that led to my hysterectomy. I knew that I wasn't moving around very much. I was in pain all the time, and my body was changing. But I had almost given up on it. And so the hysterectomy helped me change my perspective. And in fact, the first time I ever saw what I weighed was the day I went in for my surgery. So I was being weighed right before the surgery to know how much medication I'd be given, like during the surgery. And it was the first time I looked down, and I don't know what it was about that moment, and saw what I weighed. I had actually always asked to not see it. I didn't want to know it. I thought it would just add negative chatter into my brain to be thinking about my weight. And so at this moment, I was able to see it. I don't know if it was because I felt so supported, or like that this was a moment of medical reckoning. And what I saw was I had gained 60 pounds in about 4 years. I knew roughly. I mean, I really had not looked at my weight ever. And so I, after going through the surgery, realized like, okay, maybe I can feel okay. Maybe I can feel better. What does that look like? What's that like? And I talked with my sister-in-law and my brother about my weight. I was staying with them for my surgery. And it was the first time I'd ever said this, I've gained 60 pounds in 4 years. I don't even feel connected to my body. I don't know what's happening. And that's when I started hearing more about Wegovy and Ozempic and started on the journey of learning about it.
Sarah,
I feel like I'm just talking.
No,
Yeah.
I love it. And Sarah, I needed this today. I always feel shame when I publicly process and I'm dealing with some things I wish I could speak out about, including my Mounjaro journey. Thanks, Sarah. Mounjaro is a sister medicine.
Yes, absolutely. It's not semi-glutenade, but it's within the family. And in fact, Mounjaro was the first one that I thought, this is the one I should be on. I didn't know anything. I'm still learning so much about this. But yes, Sarah, agree. It's like, does anyone even care? Who wants to talk about my weight? Like, I know.
So I will say two things as we get into this. One is that I'm always nervous to talk about weight. It is for God's sake, when the world is literally burning, why we are all so fixated on weight, I do not know. I always say, like, if I could give back the hundreds and thousands of hours that my brain has wasted on worrying about my weight, I'd probably win a Nobel Prize. But whatever. Weight is a minefield in this country. Weight is a minefield when it comes to professional identity and how we show up at work. And so weight is something that I am fascinated by, body image and identity, totally fascinated. My own eating issues are super complicated. I have like a lot of compulsions around exercise. I have been on a diet since I was 11 years old. I have a lot of stuff. But I am thin. And so I'm like, always nervous. But I really wanted to talk about this because this is a cultural conversation and it creates profound, I would imagine, look, you went through two profound changes because you had a hysterectomy and then you've lost about 30 pounds.
Yeah, at this point, I've lost 35 pounds. But at the same time, this is not something that started in the past couple of years in terms of radical body experiences. I would say that the first experience I had, and you and I re-listened to our interview together, and I mentioned it on our interview, which is I had a Topamax experience years ago in 2015, where I had lost 40 pounds by being on this migraine medication called Topamax. And that really, and again, like SSRIs, I had to go through a lot of medication experiences to reckon with my relationship with medication. I had to learn about side effects. I had to learn that it's not a forever decision. It's an ever evolving relationship with medication. And Topamax is the one that did that for me. Topamax was the one that just had such insane side effects to me. It changed my personality. It changed how I behaved in the world and my body. And it was the one where I basically felt like, well, at least I'm thinner. My personality may be gone. My husband may want to leave me, but at least I'm thinner.
Oh, God.
Which is disgusting.
That is so messed up. But yeah.
It's so messed up. And it's not even something that I talked about. I mean, it's more that other people talked about it to me. Like everyone was asking me, what'd you do? What did you do? What are you on a diet? What's this diet? I had my LA-based friends saying, tell me more about Topamax. And I was like, well, I'm a zombie and I drift off for minutes at a time. I forget my words, but yeah, I've lost some weight. So, that's the thing. That's why SSRIs.
Didn't Maria Callas ingest tapeworms to stay thin?
Forgot about that.
I always have this image of this diva going, this horrible snake in her body.
You're right. I know that. I remember in my 20s, I was like, well, are tapeworms a real thing? And fecal transplants seem big. Maybe that'll help. I mean, so many different things. But I think the biggest thing was this idea of like, my mind is having really bad side effects, but my body's getting thinner. So that's and this is where I started to understand that the journey through these medications and SSRIs added to me gaining weight, by the way. So there's that as well. Where, 2015, I switched off Topamax, went on SSRIs, started gaining weight. It's all just this mesh of issues and topics and things to discuss.
Why were you excited? In your email, you wrote, I've gone down on Lexapro. You were on 20 and you went down to 5. And
I think actually what I meant, what the thing is, I'm always the first to say, like, have you explored medication? Like, I have absolutely zero stigma around medication. I think medication, again, can be an amazing tool, one that I'm very grateful for. I have been on Lexapro since 2015. I am now only on 5 milligrams, so I've gone down quite a bit. Wow. And it's more that I was proud of myself for navigating the going down than anything else, because every time you go down, you have a bunch of different side effects. I don't feel like there's any big, win to being off of Lexapro. I'm not like I need to be off Lexapro at all. What I'm looking for is you know, to always explore my experience with the side effects, with the what's it like to be off Lexapro at this point? I don't have to be on it forever. Like, things have changed since 2015. I'm in a different mental space. I have more tools. I have more coping tools and lots of other things. So, and pain always has driven why I've made my decisions. So my migraines, my nausea, my pain lessened so much from the hysterectomy that I said to myself, maybe I can try being off Lexapro. Let's see.
You said that you were ready somehow to listen to your body at that
Yeah.
moment. It had been, I think, I relate to the idea that your body sometimes is screaming at you, being like, just
Screaming.
fucking listen to
I'm
me.
taking you down. I always describe it like that with the migraines. I'm taking you down.
And that you said that, like, you often just didn't listen for years.
I didn't even know what listening was. Remember that? I don't know if you remember, but I said, my mind was like a balloon on a string, and everything that I thought I was up in this balloon, and my body was just down here completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And so, I think, in 2015, with my diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, I started to listen to all the signals that my body was sending me in the form of all these symptoms and, nausea, lightheadedness, fainting, migraines. I mean, I had done everything I could not to listen to these things. So I started to learn how to listen to them. And I feel like I just keep going deeper with it. And this weight thing is like the next level down. And I'm lucky to be able to do that because of Wegovy, actually. Like, I don't even know without Wegovy if I would have been able to get to where I am now with this relationship, because it lowers food noise. This is something people talk a lot about with Wegovy. It lowers food noise in your head, meaning you are no longer thinking, what's my next meal? What did I eat? Should I be eating that? Should I not be eating that? It just silences that.
Oh my God, that sounds like a miracle.
It is kind of a miracle. It is a miracle.
Oh.
It is.
It lowers the food noise. When did you first notice that chatter was gone or lessened?
Quickly. And I have a friend who may even be here with us right now who went on it a month ago, and she said within 2 days she noticed the food noise was going down. But I quickly, now for me, because I whatever my nervous system, however it was built biologically, I'm going to feel a lot of things. So I had nausea immediately. I had like a lot of the side effects. So it took time to adjust to get to the point where only the food noise was like the thing I really noticed was down, if that makes sense. It took longer for me, but other people have said it's faster.
Listeners, send us a comment, send us a question about your experience, food noise. I'm still stuck on that because that is just the perfect.
Morra, it's like freedom. I mean, the emotional relationship, and again, like SSRIs, the emotional relationship of letting go of some of this baggage, because of the physical experience. That's why, to me, the comparison is so stark. And also, what I was going to say earlier was the reason I decided to write the post is because my husband said to me, I think there's a lot of hypocrisy or confusion from people about how to talk about this, because we've been told body positivity is very important. So everyone wants to be, and rightly so, they want to be supportive. They want to be embracing of bodies, of all bodies, which I do too. And I want to be embracing of my own body. And yet at the same time, you have a lot of people who are suddenly losing weight, and you're seeing it, and you're seeing people looking differently, and they're, but they're not necessarily saying it. So a lot of celebrities you'll see are like, it's food and, it's diet and exercise. I just finally figured it out.
For God's sake, lady. I mean, Well,
It's
okay,
diet and
so
exercise. I just figured it out.
I just love being healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, there's no shame in acknowledging the complexity of this topic. There's no shame in the full range.
But there clearly is a lot of shame. And I was
Well,
reflecting.
there should be no shame.
Right. I mean, Ruth Marcus at the Washington Post wrote a fabulous, very long first person about her journey with Ozempic. I really recommend. And there were 2 points from that I wanted to bring up. One is, I do feel there's something deeply in our culture. It's Americans capitalistic that it feels that we have to have the grit, the
Yes.
discipline.
Yes.
That there is something admirable about putting the hard work in and then suffering if you don't, versus people are like, well, if you just take a shot, that's cheating. I've heard that a million times. It's Ruth Marcus wrote that. I cheated. I took Ozempic. It's so capitalistic to me.
I think you're exactly right. One thing I just want to say, in case anyone out there is listening and they're thinking, wait, Ozempic is approved for diabetes treatment. Right. Wegovy is approved by the FDA for weight management. So people may, often you hear like, hey, I'm on Ozempic, and I'm stealing it from people that actually need it for diabetes. Like we're in the early stages of these drugs and we're still figuring it out as a society. And when I started this, I thought, I'm going to go on Mounjaro because that's the one I've heard about. And, there are like weight loss spas that help you with getting on Mounjaro. And then when I went to see my doctor and they told me, hey, Wegovy is actually approved by the FDA for weight loss and you can go on that. I just want to mention that because it is sort of a confusing world of these different drugs. And there is some complexity there around making sure that the drugs are available for people who need them, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And there's a lot of privilege and a lot of people go off label and pay privately for these drugs. And so that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yes.
Sarah, okay, I wish some thought leaders would listen to people on this journey when it comes to food noise. The difference between hunger signals and food noise, in my experience, is vast. I get hunger signals on Mounjaro, but I no longer experience the effects of insulin resistance that used to cause me to constantly crave specific things all the time to the point of distraction. Wow.
Thank you, Sarah. Great comment.
Yeah. Yep.
She's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Sarah is filled with knowledge out there. Yes. She's exactly right. She's just saying that, that there is this tension around don't steal from people who have diabetes, and so again, like different journeys, different drugs.
This is another piece of it. I wrote this week about, I went to go get my novel antipsychotic called Caplyta, which I feel has been life-changing. My insurance is not working right now. And it was $1,800. They applied a discount. It was only $1,200. I thought, this is America. This is everywhere. But I don't want to focus on health policy. I want to acknowledge it and just say, there are a lot of tensions there. But one of the things that you tied in, which I thought was also fascinating, is your job is to help people grow in creativity. That's literally your job. And you talk a lot about growth mindset and the ability to see experiences for their learning potential. And you wrote, in the past 5 months of my medication up and downs, I've been forced to live my philosophy many times over. That for you being able to communicate what you're experiencing gives your experiences shape and purpose, because you've been really sick as well and you've been through difficult times.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there's something that I'm really fascinated by, and I want to explore it more, which is this idea of how narrative helps us make sense of our lives. That there are sort of 2 layers that we heal on from trauma. One is physical, biological, and the other is narrative and storytelling. And so it could be said that talk therapy is helping people understand their narrative, helping them make sense of having shared narratives with other people. This is very important to me. This is something that I've realized is crucial and sort of core to who I am, is not only making my own narrative, because anyone can make any narrative they want, but like testing it with others, like getting feedback, being told like, I disagree with that. That's not right. I'm married to someone who's always telling me like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Because it's not just that you say something, it's that you say it, it's out in the world, and you're understanding through feedback what it actually means. For that reason, it is very important to me to say things publicly, not just to myself, because that is where I feel my growth is to have people ask me questions and change my thinking and push back on me. And living that, what I mean by the past 5 months I've had to live it is, you can say a lot of things about growth mindset. You can say like, it's so important. You really should do it. You really should. But like being forced to feel so sick and laying in bed and saying to yourself, like, this is an adjustment of the medication. And understand like this is part of the inputs. This is data inputs for me. That's like living it.
Data inputs.
Data inputs.
God bless
I
you.
work at tech, everyone. I'm sorry.
Data inputs. And yet, when you're on serious meds, you do spend a lot of your time with that data input. And
tracking is crucial. Tracking side effects is crucial.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on lowering food noise.
Yeah.
I want to
Tell
know
me,
how
what is it about that? Is that because you also feel food noise? Tell me more. Like where is that for you?
I feel food noise. I feel exercise noise. I feel guilt and shame. And it, like I said, it just takes up way too much space in my brain. Between that and anxiety, it's like there's no room for real thoughts. And one of the things that SSRIs have been great at, but particularly Caplyta has been really great at, is lowering a lot of the noise in my brain.
Exactly.
But the food noise persists.
It's so interesting. I don't know what it is. I'm sure over the next 10 years, we're going to learn so much more about these medications. Like, what is it that leads to that exactly? Is there a way to have it for someone that does not need to lose weight? Like you. I mean, is there anything that can help you with food noise?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I know that there are therapeutic modalities, right? And obviously there's even special cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders. I just wanted to throw out, I was actually, just checking my phone, because there is a lot of work on narrative healing and narrative medicine out there. And there's a book called The Healing Power of Storytelling by, I think it's Anne A. Noonan, I just love that book. So, listeners, Healing Power of Storytelling. Yes.
Yeah, there is one in particular that I've written about before, and I believe the title is Breakthrough. It's about trauma. I first heard about it on a podcast interview with the author. I was very taken by it. It was the description of how working with trauma is this twofold journey, the biological and the narrative. Her assertion is that trauma really is not what happens to you. It's whether you have the trusted connections to build a narrative around it. Even as a child, do you have that trusted person that helps you understand this for yourself within your own history and your own story of what happened to you? Yeah. It's an area I'm fascinated by, and I definitely want to delve into more. And any recommendations from anyone out there about this world of narrative understanding, contextualizing. That's really, if you listen to everything I'm saying around, I want to get my thing out there, but I want feedback and I want to understand it's all the same thing. It's contextualizing experiences.
How will your narrative change if you're a person who is not in pain all the time?
Healthy,
active.
Yeah. Wow.
not 60 pounds heavier than you want to be. Like, how is that
Yeah.
going to integrate into who you are?
I don't even know yet because I'm still, I said to myself, I'm going to give this a year. So a year from February of, because by the way, sadly, I wish it were just these migraines and nausea. I also have, it's also boring and I feel 900 years old when I talk about it, but I also have iliopsoas tendinopathy, which is like it's like tendinitis, but it's not all inflammation. It's like the tendons in your hip are all of the things I have going on, by the way, are confusers. When I look them up, it's like, we don't understand much about iliopsoas tendinopathy. We don't understand much about endometriosis. Like, people are learning, but, a lot of these things, I feel like I'm a machine that just takes in every confusing event in the world and then tries to like understand and
That
clarify
must
it.
create
Definitely
terrible.
the hysterectomy journey was so confusing. So
Why was
so
that?
I'm working on a hip stuff. I'm working on like Achilles tendinitis in my foot. It's so many layers of like healing. It's working to heal and understand.
Do you have an exercise or something that you do when you just don't want to be in a growth mindset around your pain?
God, you ask the best
Oh.
questions. You're saying, this is how I translate what you're saying. Hey, what if you're not up for the work of growth mindset? Then what do you do?
What if you just
Like,
want to
what do you
pop
do
a
at that
pill?
moment?
Like, I have muscle relaxants for migraines and all my horrible chronic pain. And some days I'm just like, oh my God, I just want to knock myself out and just excuse
Yeah.
myself for the day.
Yeah. I mean,
That's
I
not growth
have
mindset.
I have many things I do. I would not say it's against growth mindset, by the way. Like, to me, growth mindset simply means I'm going to have this input and I'm going to see what happens. So
Oh,
you could be having an input of the muscle relaxants. And if you're staying conscious with it, you're not just, fuck it. I don't even know how we feel about swearing, but like, I'm not even going to think about this. I'm just going to, which is, by the way, what I felt I did for a year when I was in bed. I spent a year in bed.
you
To me,
did.
that was not a growth mindset moment. I mean, I like still worked.
Yeah. You and I
I
both have
went
the
out into the
privilege of
world.
being able to work from bed. Totally.
I was in bed a lot. Like, yes, I would walk to this desk and have meetings, but
Yeah.
then I would go in bed.
Yep.
It
Been
was,
there.
and yes, it was a work from home. It was over COVID as well. So, but I think, growth mindset is a very subtle thing. We talk about it sort of in a bro-tastic way, like it's like powering through, but I actually think it's more subtle than that. I think it has to do with how engaged you are with your patterns.
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
So, to answer your question, what do I do when I don't feel like engaging? Um, I well, I do so many different things. I mean, the number of baths and Epsom salts, the Megan bed, edibles, just the list goes on and on
Yeah.
of so many things that um, fill in the gaps around, it's like different. Some people might call it self-care and some might call it, just my techniques for getting through.
Yeah. It's
But I have many.
interesting. And I do think my neck hurts me right now. I think
Oh,
when you live and feel like your body isn't optimal, that creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of noise. And
so
that's
much.
really hard. And I think that's something we never talk about at work. We never talk about it because so many of us are suffering. My wonderful massage therapist is like, he's so booked. And he's like, it's all y'all who just spend all your lives in front of screens. And he's like, everyone's in pain. And it's funny, I'm reading the book about the Sackler family called Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. It's incredible. And a lot of it is about how pain was invented as a way to sell lots of drugs.
I believe that. And I also have been very tuned in. By the way, Beautiful Voyager, when I first started thinking about it in 2015, when people would ask me why I wanted to do it, I said it was because of the opioid crisis. because
Huh.
I saw how much pain, what was happening in people's treatment of this pain, and how the path of opioid medication in addressing the pain was not really getting at what was happening for people. It was only a path towards self-destruction in many ways, obviously. And by the way, I also read Demon Copperhead. I saw that in your newsletter as well. But yes, I've been thinking about opioids in that way for years and years.
I didn't know that. That's really interesting.
Everyone was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah. What about the opioid crisis? This is all about pain." I feel like I was just slightly ahead of like where our thinking is now on things.
Always. Oh, that's your job. That's your job.
It is my job.
That's what you get paid for.
That's right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Okay, I want to end. We're over time, but I want to
Great.
ask you one more question about processing. I think you and I are both people who process in public, but we're also kind of self-conscious about that.
Yes.
What advice do you have for people who are considering whether they want to include a public narrative about themselves that includes subjects that are traumatic?
I would start. One thing that I've been doing this year is getting very intentional around who I spend time with and in my own life and tuning into how they make me feel. This has always been something I've been aware of, but I've been so intentional. I have on my notes app on my phone, like, these are the people. These are the people I want to spend more time with. These are the people that are making me feel this way. And I really recommend that people think about that for themselves and look for 3, look for 2. And it may be super obvious to you. My brother, my best friend. Start by talking to them. Just see about building that narrative for yourself in a very small, intimate way. How does that go? How does it feel? Because when we start writing for the rest of the world, we're extending, hopefully, what we're doing with our people in our life.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to, and I always say, you got to be gawky to get graceful. Like in the beginning, it feels weird. You're gawky, you're embarrassing. I have many stories about saying embarrassing things. By the way, last week I wrote a newsletter about being on vacation. And afterwards, and I posted it on LinkedIn, it got like 1 like for a week. And I was like, oh, here we go again. But like, I'm like learning over and over. It's fine. Like, I'm talking about these things with the people I love. They're giving me feedback. I'm understanding. I'm writing about it. Doesn't mean every topic is going to hit with everyone. Doesn't mean anyone's going to respond to certain things. I didn't even know you liked the piece about Wegovy. When I wrote that, I didn't know what the response is. So you will have an impact as you write on people you may not even realize the impact that you have. And you have to have faith, again, faith that is okay.
Faith.
Yes. You have to believe, like you have to really, and it takes a long time. So for me now, it's been since 2015. That's a long time of pushing things out into the world and just having faith that people are seeing it. Maybe they aren't, but it doesn't matter if they're not. Keep going, keep going. It's not easy. I wish I could say it's easy. I wish I could say I don't second guess it all the time myself. I do, but I'm still showing up. I'm still here with you. You know, these are things that tell me like you're figuring out how to do this in a way, and you're building like a little muscle and a little callus around it so it doesn't hurt quite as much. So again, to answer your question, if you're somebody who is thinking about how do I start telling my journey? How do I tell my story? Start by talking about it out loud with a couple of trusted people. Come up with a couple of metaphors that make you laugh. You know, come up with like what your voice is or around these topics, and then start writing it down and start sharing it. And again, you can go first to the trusted people, and then you can like start sharing it more widely. I mean, it can take time, and some of it, again, speaking of privilege, is being lucky enough to be in a place where I feel accepted by my colleagues to be able to talk about these things. I mean, I feel like my colleagues know me enough that I'm not going to be terribly judged. So again, you're just trying to build people knowing you, people understanding you, being able to contextualize you as well as you sharing your own context.
It would be such a gift if we were all able to contextualize each other.
I know. I totally agree.
Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you. It was so great to see you. It was so great to spend time with you. Thank you to everyone who's taking the time to listen.
Yeah, follow up, leave us comments on LinkedIn because we'd love to hear.
I would love to hear. Thank you.
That's it for today. To hear more LinkedIn Lives, head over to my profile on LinkedIn where they're all indexed. You can subscribe to my newsletter too. And be sure to subscribe or follow the Anxious Achiever feed for more of these conversations, as well as my regular podcast episodes.